All right, so today we're diving into the culture at Netflix.
Oh, yeah, this should be good.
Yeah, I think so too.
So we're talking about this based on a couple of recent interviews with the Netflix co-founder.
Right. Reid Hastings.
Yeah, exactly.
He gave like a talk at Stanford GSB,
Yeah,
and he was on this podcast called First Time Founders.
that's a good one.
And he was talking all about the Netflix culture.
Yeah, he's got some pretty interesting ideas about company culture.
So we thought this would be a cool way to kind of get right to the core of it.
Get to like what really makes Netflix tick.
Yeah, exactly. And how do they become, so successful?
Totally. And the thing is, he's so consistent.
Yeah.
Like across both of these interviews, it's really the same core ideas.
Yeah, it's not like he's saying one thing to the business school students
Right.
and then a totally different thing to like the, startup founders.
Totally. Like these are fundamental principles for him.
Okay, so one of the most well-known things about Netflix is the idea of like team, not family.
Right.
Like he really emphasizes that.
I actually think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's such a clear way to think about building a company.
Yeah, he's basically saying we're not here to, be best friends or whatever.
Yeah, it's not about unconditional love and support.
Right. It's about like we're here to win.
Exactly, like a championship team.
So how does that actually play out?
Well, he has this famous quote,
Mm.
adequate performance gets a generous severance package.
Wow. Okay, so
Now, that was a pretty radical statement like 15 years ago when he first started saying that.
yeah, people were not used to hearing that,
No, not at all.
especially in like Silicon Valley where everyone's like, oh, we're all a family here.
Right.
But he's basically saying no.
We're all about high performance.
So if you're not cutting it, you're out.
Pretty much, but you're going to be well taken care of.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
It's like a professional sports team.
Okay.
You've got to earn your spot every year.
I mean, that does kind of make sense,
It does.
but it's definitely like a different way of looking at things.
It is. I mean, it goes against that traditional, company as family.
Yeah.
Like, we're all in this together no matter what.
But this is more like a meritocracy.
Exactly. You perform, you stay, you go.
But it's not like a cold-hearted thing
No, not at all.
because they do give people generous severance packages.
Right.
So it's like
Yeah.
we're not trying to like throw you out on the street.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that people's lives are complicated.
Yeah.
And sometimes, things just don't work out.
And maybe you're a great person,
Totally.
but you're just not the right fit for this particular team.
That's a really good point.
So they try to make that transition as smooth as possible.
Exactly.
It's like they're saying, look, we value you,
Yes.
but you're not the right person for this particular role.
Yeah. And that's okay.
That's okay.
It's not a moral judgment.
Right.
It's just a business decision.
And I guess that leads us to the keeper test.
Yeah. Yeah, this is another one of those really simple but powerful ideas.
So how does this work?
So the keeper test is basically a question that managers ask themselves about each person on their team.
Good. What's the question?
The question is, if this person were considering leaving, would I fight hard to keep them?
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's not about like performance reviews or like some kind of scoring system.
So it's all about the manager's gut feeling.
Exactly. It's about their judgment.
Yeah.
It's like, do I really, truly value this person?
Okay.
And would I be really bummed if they left?
So if the answer is no.
Then the recommendation is to offer that person a severance package.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's about proactively managing the team.
So it's not just about like waiting for people to quit or get fired.
No, it's about creating a team of people who are all really valued.
That's fascinating.
And it keeps the bar high.
Yeah, you're constantly kind of evaluating.
Always.
All right, so let's move on to something that I think is really interesting and also kind of controversial.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about extraordinary candor.
Yeah. So this is basically the idea that Netflix encourages people to be really direct with each other.
Yeah, even if it means being kind of blunt.
Yeah.
Which, a lot of companies are like, oh, no, we need to be polite.
Yeah, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Right.
But Hastings is basically saying no.
We need to be honest with each other.
Yeah.
Even if it's a little uncomfortable.
And he even said this.
What's that?
He said, it's better to enable people to be rude and to be very direct, at least about the workplace.
Yeah, and I can see how that could be misinterpreted.
Oh, totally.
Like people might think, oh, so I can just be a jerk to everyone.
Right.
But that's not what he's saying.
No.
It's about being direct and honest, but
Yeah.
not personal.
Right. It's not about attacking people.
No, it's about the work.
It's about having like clear and efficient communication.
Exactly. Like no sugarcoating,
No beating around the bush.
just getting to the point.
And the idea is that this helps to surface problems more quickly.
Yeah, and it can avoid like misunderstandings and resentment down the road.
Because if you're not being honest with each other,
Right, then problems can fester.
So this kind of ties into the next principle, which is farming for dissent.
Oh yeah, this one's really important.
Yeah, especially when you have a company that's moving as fast as Netflix
So the idea here is to actively seek out different viewpoints.
and to really consider them.
Yeah, even if they go against the prevailing opinion.
And this came about after the whole Quickster debacle.
Right, that was a big turning point for them.
Yeah, they realized that they needed to be more open to different perspectives.
Yeah, especially when the leader, like Hastings, has a strong opinion,
Yeah, or like a track record of success.
because that can make it hard for people to speak up.
So how does this farming for dissent actually work in practice?
Well, for big decisions, they have a pretty structured process.
Okay.
Everyone puts their views into a shared document.
Like a Google Doc or something?
Yeah, something like that.
And then what,
And then everyone rates their confidence in the decision.
like on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, or sometimes they use a -10 to +10 scale.
Oh.
So you can really see the range of opinions.
And then Hastings, or whoever's making the decision,
Right.
they take all of that into account.
Yeah, they have to really consider all the different perspectives.
And then they make a decision.
And then everyone gets on board and executes.
So it's like rigorous debate followed by unified action.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so now let's talk about the whole letting go thing.
Right, because this is kind of the flip side of the team, not family idea.
Yeah, if you're not performing,
Then you gotta go.
but they do it in a very specific way.
Yeah, Hastings talks about this a lot.
And he's always emphasizing that it needs to be done with honesty and directness.
But also with respect.
Yeah, it's not about being mean or hurtful.
It's about having a clear and compassionate conversation.
Yeah, and he even gave this example at Stanford.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
He was like, imagine you have an employee who's just not cutting it,
Okay.
and you have to let them go.
Right.
And he's like, you don't say you suck.
Yeah.
You say something like, look, you're a really talented person,
Okay.
but you're just not the right fit for this role.
Yeah.
And we've decided to go in a different direction.
So it's about being honest, but not brutal.
Exactly.
And then you give them a generous severance package.
Right. So what does that typically look like?
Well, Hastings mentioned that it's usually around 9 months of compensation.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's very generous.
And it serves two purposes.
Yeah, first of all, it gives the employee a financial cushion.
So they're not like freaking out about money.
Right. They have time to find a new job.
And the second purpose is that it encourages managers to actually make the tough decisions.
Yeah, because if you're going to let someone go,
You know it's going to cost the company a lot of money.
so it makes you really think about whether it's the right decision.
And hopefully it leads to better decision-making overall.
Exactly.
So it's like a win-win.
In a way, yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about all these different principles of the Netflix culture.
And they all kind of fit together.
Yeah, but there's also this sense that the culture has evolved over time.
Right.
And Hastings has talked about this idea of like big-hearted champions who pick up the trash.
That's a great phrase.
It's so memorable.
And it really captures the essence of what they're trying to achieve.
So let's break it down.
Okay.
What does big-hearted mean in this context?
So it means being generous and caring.
Yeah?
Like having empathy for your colleagues.
And creating a supportive work environment,
Exactly.
and then champions. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's about striving for excellence.
Yeah.
Like being the best at what you do.
And having that competitive spirit.
Exactly.
But then there's this whole pick up the trash thing.
Yeah, that's the one that really stands out.
What does it mean?
So on a literal level,
Yeah.
it means like taking care of the office.
Yeah.
Like cleaning up after yourself.
But it's also more than that,
It's about taking responsibility, like
Yeah.
doing the things that need to be done.
even if no one's watching.
Ex-
And even if it's not like glamorous or exciting,
It's about having a sense of ownership.
so it's like the combination of all three of these things.
Yeah. Big-hearted champions who pick up the trash.
That's what they're aspiring to.
It's a pretty high bar.
Yeah, but it's also really inspiring.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we've talked about the keeper test, extraordinary candor farming for dissent,
Letting go, generous severance,
team not family.
and big-hearted champions who pick up the trash.
It's a lot to take in.
But I think it's really valuable.
Oh, definitely.
Because it gives us a glimpse into how Netflix has built such a successful culture.
And it's not just about the culture.
Right.
In these interviews, Hastings also talked about some of the big decisions they've made.
Yeah, like almost buying Blockbuster.
Ah, that's a crazy story.
I know. And then the whole Quickster thing.
Yeah, which obviously didn't go so well.
But they learned from it.
And they adapted.
And now they're talking about AI and gaming and global content.
Yeah, they're always pushing the boundaries.
So it's really interesting to see how they've evolved.
And to think about how their culture has shaped their success.
Yeah, so as you're listening to this,
Yeah.
think about how these principles might apply to your own work.
Or to your own teams.
Like, what would your version of the keeper test be?
Or how could you encourage more candor in your workplace?
These are all really important questions to consider.
Definitely.
And if you're interested in hearing more deep dives like this,
Yeah.
make sure to subscribe to our podcast.
We've got some great episodes coming up
Yeah, we'll be talking to all sorts of fascinating people,
about all sorts of interesting topics.
so don't miss out.
Subscribe now.
And thanks for listening.
See you next time.